Once again, here's lawyer and economist Maggie Dawn.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Maggie Dawn. You are listening to The Maggie Dawn Show here on the Civic Media Radio Network. I've been looking forward to this conversation all week. My guest for the next half hour is Yuri Rashkin. He has been operating his own radio show, YouTube show. I don't know what to call these things anymore. We've got all these different platforms here. He called the Rashkin Report. He has been focused on the Ukrainian regions of Crimea and Donbass. He has been spending a lot of time focusing and helping people understand what is actually going on the ground for people that live in those regions, some of the geopolitical context as well as the historical context. He is often sought out by Russian-speaking news outlets that are not controlled by the Kremlin. Yes, there's a few of them that do exist out there. So, Yuri, you're also a Rock County Board of Supervisors supervisor. So first, as someone that worked for Milwaukee County for a very long time and worked with supervisors, let me say thank you for your public service and serving your community in Rock County. And thank you for helping to bring really an insider's perspective to what is going on in both Crimea and Donbass and on a broader level in the Russia-Ukraine war. Thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to represent the 16th district of Rock County, downtown Beloit. Come on down. We have an amazing baseball team. We have dining areas, just restaurants. My goodness, downtown Beloit, the place to be. And of course, Ukraine.
Yes, absolutely. Why did you start doing your show, the Rashkin Report? What caused you? You know, you've got plenty going on. You've lived here for a long time. You were born in Russia. Tell us, what was the catalyst to start sharing your perspectives in this way?
You know, I blame Ward because I was hosting a regular program on WRT, an amazing radio station that I think many of your listeners and viewers know in Madison. And my schedule changed at UW-Whitewater, and I had to spend more time teaching, which was great too. And I thought, you know, I really got that bug of hosting a show, and I decided to start a podcast. And I thought, well, maybe it would be interesting to talk about Russia in English. Turned out 3 people wanted to listen to that. I thought, okay, how about we do it in Russian, because that is my first language. I don't speak it much anymore, except, you know, I'm also a court certified interpreter in Wisconsin and Illinois. So other than when I work, I really don't speak Russian. But it turned out to be an opportunity for people who wanted to come out. They were looking for a place to speak and a platform, because I'm basically the only progressive liberal Russian-speaking voice in the United States broadcasting. There really is nobody else, because a vast majority of well over 90% of Russian speakers are Trump supporters. And so when you have people who are, you know, and I started right in 2016, so it was kind of gaining steam the more that Trump was becoming in vogue. Every time he became more powerful, more visible, the number of my subscribers went up because people were curious what's going on. What happened is, when Russia launched its big invasion of Ukraine in February of 2022, I started paying more attention to Ukraine and started to tell even more focused kind of my attention on informing Ukrainians about what's going on in America politically, because I love American politics, but there's nobody discussing it in Russian in any sort of a sensible way that's not like conspiracy minded, outside of a handful of people. So I ended up being invited to Ukrainian TV, Ukrainian YouTube channels to just explain what the heck is going on in America, because they're being fed this one line, and then, you know, I don't know, Secretary Blinken shows up or this or the newspaper, but there's no context. And so I've been doing this for 3 years now, getting invited to these YouTube channels, basically, I think, sustaining Ukrainian economy with viewers and likes, and kind of ended up building my own channel in the process, and developed a following, and have close to, you know, I have 177,000 subscribers now on YouTube. And it's been very unexpected, and I'm glad that I have a kind of a niche to fill there by informing people about what's going on in America, especially since Voice of America is gone. So it's what an opportunity.
We have incredible listeners on this network. These are people that are plugged in, that care deeply, and they come from all across the political spectrum, though more on the left. And one of those incredible listeners, Ali, who frequently reaches out, called during my last segment to say, will you please ask our new friend Yuri what it was like when the Trump administration announced that they would be defunding and shuttering Radio Free America and Voice of America. And when that was happening, I took some time on a couple of my shows to talk about how long those outlets have been around and the incredible importance of those outlets to resistance fighters in World War II, right? And then into the Cold War, how important those voices have been. And the fact that, again, as you pointed out, for a lot of Russian speakers, the outlets that they are getting information from are basically either explicitly, if we're talking about RT, Russia Today, Kremlin directed, or there are a lot of what I would call risks for many folks that are trying to speak out in a more objective way. What was that like for you, as you were born in Moscow, and it's someone that deeply cares about this region and Russian-American relations, as well as what's happening in Ukraine? You came here as a 13-year-old kid. This is your home. What was that like, knowing that information is the key to help people understand and hold their governments accountable, whether you are living in Vladivostok or Moscow or in Kyiv?
Maggie, people need information. No matter what the society is, people want to know what's going on. And Voice of America was, if nothing else, this was the voice of American government. This was the voice of what we want, not just as we have now a missive on Truth Social, but like consistent voice policy, flushing it out. Of course, when we don't have that, what would radio station talk about? But Fox News manages. But for me, this was very personal for a couple of reasons, because as a child, I grew up listening to these evil voices from the West, because I was always a very political kid, and I was looking to these, shortwave radios that we had, and I would listen to them at night. And I knew that, I listened to Voice of Vatican America and voice of everybody, because I was just information junkie back then. And to imagine that that voice of America is now missing from there, that hurts, because I know that as a child how important it was to me to form my understanding of what the world was like. And at the same time, I've over the last few years gathered considerable experience being a guest on Voice of America Russian speaking service. So I was kind of like the voice of I don't know, not quite Democratic Party, but I had like when there was a debate or some political thing, to be like, okay, we need to have Yuri Rashkin on from this side, and then somebody else from the other side. And so this was and of course this was never any money. This was just an opportunity to reach people, and just to have this opportunity to just be the voice of when President Biden speaks, and then there's what we all think about it. So it was an amazing opportunity, and I'm really thankful for it. But it was difficult. It is difficult. We are missing it. There are some substitutes. There's a Radio Free Europe that continues to function, but I think it's mostly volunteer staffed. This has been a really tremendous assault on our media on all levels, and the more media depends on government subsidies, the more it got hurt when this administration came in.
A question: what parallels are you seeing between Donald Trump's approach, antagonism, sort of aggressive pursuit of censorship of media outlets, constantly assailing various reporters as fake news and you're stupid, to the approach of Vladimir Putin to control the information that the citizens of Russia have access to?
There's a couple of things. I think, first of all, it's an important part of what Donald Trump does and what Vladimir Putin wants to show it is that democracy is just a circus. There's nothing there, that serious people don't play these games. The last elections that Putin ran in, he didn't even come to the place where the debates took place because he didn't want to be a part of this clown show. Of course, the United States, our president is the clown show. So it's a slight difference in approach. The other thing that I find fascinating is when people ask me about the shutdown in Ukraine, and they say that what's going on between Republicans and Democrats, and I explain to them that it's a kind of similar situation to what's going on between Russia and Ukraine and their ability and inability to sit down and have negotiations, because both sides feel like they're doing pretty well and they can't surrender, and this would be worse to surrender. And so they continue to fight, thinking that the luck could, its chances are in their favor are pretty good. And so I think that there's some interesting battle lines and similarities that one can find when looking at both of these situations. But the dreadful thing is that with the last administration, insufficiently as that help may have been, and that was part of the problem, because a lot of people were very critical of the Biden approach and Jake Sullivan approach, saying, oh, we're so afraid of Putin because he might escalate. Oh no, we're not going to let Ukraine have more weapons or shoot further or anything. We're going to restrict them. And so they don't lose. And then what happens then? Donald Trump comes to power, and then we have a totally different approach, obviously. The big moment for Ukrainians, honestly, they really believed in Donald Trump, that he was going to come and be different than Biden and have like a different approach that's going to actually fix things and because he demonstrates strength. He was, they thought he's going to
play exit, at least, right. Yes.
Is when this big argument went down with Zelensky in February in White House. I had a stream after that got like 1 million views because everyone was like, what is going on? And after that, trust was broken. After that, you can talk about different things, but people just kind of feel like we don't, we hope that this time he's telling the truth, but we're kind of learning. And this whole 2-week business, Ukrainians are not buying it.
Yeah. Folks, we are with Yuri Rashkin. He hosts a podcast called The Rashkin Report on YouTube. He has been featured across numerous Russian-speaking media outlets that are not Kremlin-controlled. Very, very important. He was born in Moscow, came to the United States as 13. At the age of 13, he is currently a Rock County supervisor. He has taught classes at UW Rock County and UW Parkside. He works as a Russian interpreter. He also plays the upright bass and piano. We may get to that as a violinist myself. We've got tons of questions. If you've got questions or comments for Yuri, 855-752-4842, 855-75-CIVIC. One of the things that has happened most recently was this private meeting, unlike the clown show that happened a few weeks ago, between the White House and Volodymyr Zelensky. Reports are that devolved again into a shouting match with President Trump swearing throughout the meeting. I want to ask you about that. I want to ask you about Tomahawk missiles and Donald Trump's flip-flop on that when we come back. And what actually is at stake, not just for the United States, but for Ukrainians and Russians alike. Don't go anywhere. This important conversation continues on the other side. Join us with your questions or comments. 855-752-4842. That's 855-75-CIVIC. You're listening to the Civic Media Radio Network. Thank you, Jacob. This is great, Yuri. How is this going on your end? I really enjoy talking with you. Thank you.
You're very welcome. It's fantastic. It's fun. I actually started out as a violin player, but then...
Hi, friend.
Right. But then moved up to bass, and honestly, I prefer the lower frequencies. It's a personal thing.
So it's super funny that you mentioned that. My dream instrument that I always wanted to play was upright bass. Always wanted to do it. Did it a few times at jazz camp, but never got around to fully committing. In large part until about 17, 18, I thought I might try to be a professional violinist. So it was really if I had time to practice, that's what I was going to be doing. But I love the upright bass. It is the heart of the orchestra. People don't know what they're actually watching. It's the heart. If you're playing an electric bass, it's the heart of every band. Without it, stuff doesn't work. So you got my respect on that one for sure.
Absolutely. We're the glue.
Absolutely, yes. So I have just a wee bit of sound. I've got some of Trump talking about the tomahawk. So we'll start with the meeting itself. We'll move on to the importance of tomahawks and then the bigger picture question.
Sounds great.
Thank you. We are back live in about 40 seconds. So if you need a sip of water, what have you, now is a great time to do that. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Maggie Dawn. You are listening to the Maggie Dawn Show here on the Civic Media Radio Network. We are talking this half hour with Yuri Rashkin. He hosts the Rashkin Report on YouTube. You should check it out. I know I'll be tuning in, Yuri, to hear your takes on all things Russian-American relations, as well as the Ukraine-Russia conflict, which is dragging on and dragging on and dragging on and appears to have no end in sight. We all watched almost in real time as Donald Trump and J.D. Vance effectively ambushed Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in the White House a few months back. What we didn't get to watch in real time was the most recent meeting that happened on Friday, October 17th. This one was behind closed doors. Donald Trump was in that room, Steve Witkoff, a number of negotiators, as well as Ukrainian Volodymyr Zelensky. It devolved into a shouting match at times. This one was just in private. Apparently, Donald Trump was cursing up a storm. I remain utterly perplexed by the Trump administration's seeming inability to get their head around one fundamental concept, and that is that you cannot trust what Vladimir Putin will tell you, and the only thing that Vladimir Putin understands in terms of trying to create negotiating leverage is strength. It's power. It would be the support of Ukraine in a very meaningful, clear, and sustained way. That is what is going to bring this conflict to an end. Instead, we literally rolled out the red carpet for the man in Alaska, flyovers, the whole nine. That's a huge win for Putin, right? I get the pomp and circumstance and the red carpet treatment on American soil. Why is it that you think that Republicans, the MAGA movement in this country, do not understand that specifically America's long-term security interest means that we are effectively able to support nations that face existential, imminent, and ongoing threats that are aligned with us from Vladimir Putin? I mean, Ukraine's in that space, but if you look at that region, there are other countries that are clearly very nervous about what is going on in Ukraine. Why can't this fundamental kernel of truth? Putin respects shows of strength and nothing less.
Because we see demonstration of that where Republicans are showing weakness because they can't show strength. I'm so glad that you brought up this point, because for years, even though I've always considered myself a Democrat, though a position that I'm as a nonpartisan, but those are my preferences, I always found an easy time speaking with Republicans, because when the topic came to national defense, it would be like, we all understand that Russia is a threat. I mean, it's pretty obvious, right? Right. Okay, awesome. So we're on the same page and we understand. And now we see a president who is showing weakness to Vladimir Putin, who is demonstrating that he can't control him, who is acting in a subservient manner to him, and while disrespecting American troops in every possible way. So it's a combination of things that should really make Republicans mad, but it really has been such a proof of hypocrisy of so much that we hear from that side, because this is a real danger. But similarly to Reagan, who on one hand, when I think about his internal politics, I have a lot of questions, obviously, and I feel that part of the crisis where we are now started with Ronald Reagan. But at the same time, right. But at the same time, I have deep appreciation because it was in 1988 during his presidency that I and my family were able to come to the United States as refugees, as legal refugees, and to become, a citizen that I am now, and grateful to this country for everything it has given me. And I'm grateful to Ronald Reagan. But
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. I mean, right.
Right.
Reagan was probably the pinnacle of Republican hawkishness and understanding the existential threat that the then Soviet Union, now Russia, presented to American security, both in the medium and long term. Americans, and I think the MAGA movement to an extent, this sort of nouveau version of isolationism, but not, we'll cut a $40 billion check to Argentina. That's fine. That there's this, I feel like people have this false sense of security that has been fostered by years of our domestic discussion in politics, not having people, candidates especially, able to speak very clearly to why it matters to someone in Iowa or Wisconsin or Ohio what might be happening in Kyiv or Crimea or Donbass. I think it was made worse by the fact that Obama drew a bright line and then didn't follow up to enforce the bright line. But I want to just zoom out. Why is this moment, frankly, a tipping point? At least I think it is. If you think it is as well, either Russia will be pushed back and rebuffed, in my opinion, ultimately, through a much stronger support of Ukraine, including Tomahawk missiles, or Russia will be emboldened, and this is not the last territorial grab that we will see executed by Vladimir Putin. Why should people care about this in the United States, Yuri?
Because right now, Ukraine is fighting for our democratic ideals. Democracy is in real peril in the United States, and it really is going to be falling apart if Ukraine falters. Right now, so much European defense, European democracy's existence, in a way, now it depends on Ukraine's survival. And that's just an incredible position to be in versus where we were almost 4 years ago.
Folks, we're going to have to leave it there. Yuri, will you come back very soon to talk about this? Maybe we'll do a longer form discussion, get more of our listeners going. We got Kurt from Madison and Richard on the lines. I'm sorry, gentlemen, that I could not get to your questions. We will take them off the air. Yuri, I will send them to you. We will be in touch. We will share this information. We'll get you set up again to come join us here on this program.
Check out my Substack Rashkin Report.
Rashkin Report on Substack and YouTube. Check it out when we come back. It's the Friday edition of Ask Maggie. Halloween version, not the Hollywood version. Stay tuned.